With your permission, let's dive into something that's quite controversial. However, we have to examine everything from a scientific perspective. Is the human body perfect? Has evolution perfected the human body? No. There are still many issues that evolution has yet to address. While the human body is an incredible masterpiece, it's far from flawless. Let's take a closer look at some examples, starting with the human eye. The human eye is among the best compared to other animals, but not the best. About half of all people experience vision problems during their teenage or young adult years. By the time they reach their 40s or beyond, 3/4 of people suffer from weakened eyesight. This is no small issue. In the past, it was a major problem. Before glasses or contact lenses were invented, someone with poor vision would often become incapacitated, unable to work or survive. If we go even further back in history, when humans relied on hunting for survival, weak eyesight could mean death. If you couldn't hunt, you'd either starve or become prey for predators. So, why hasn't evolution fixed this issue? The brain has compensated for weak eyesight by creating tools like glasses, but it's clear the human eye is far from perfect. Even for those with excellent vision throughout their lives, the eye has its quirks like the blind spot. If you close your right eye, focus your left eye on a plus symbol, and move closer to an image, at some point, a symbol may disappear. This phenomenon is due to the blind spot in all human eyes. Why does this blind spot exist? The retina, where light-sensitive cells detect light and send signals to the brain, has a flaw. At one point, nerve fibers converge, but the human eye works like this. These cells receive light from the eye socket and, like wiring, send it to the brain through nerves. But in the middle of these light-receiving cells, there's an empty spot, and that's what creates the blind spot. You should know that this blind spot is always present in our eyes, but the brain usually compensates for it. If it didn't, we would constantly see a black spot in our vision. Just like when we close one eye, we can see the corner of our nose. But when both eyes are open, the brain removes our nose from our vision and allows us to see 180 degrees. Human eye evolution has brought it to this point. All the cells are bent toward the brain and send signals with a twist toward the brain. But if we look at a flawless eye, like that of a giant squid, we see that all of these cells face directly outward toward the light. So this squid has no blind spot. It can see perfectly in the dark, and its eye focus is far superior to ours. Now, why does this squid have such a flawless eye? Evolution. Because in its habitat, if its eyes weren't functional, it would immediately die. This squid lives several kilometers deep in the ocean, a place of total darkness. So if its eyes didn't work in the dark, it would go extinct. In fact, all octopuses or cephalopods have eyes that work this way. But the strongest type of these eyes belongs to the giant squid. So we've learned that our eyes are still incomplete. Let's move on to sinuses. We'll focus on their problems. Sinuses are those empty spaces behind the nose cavities in the human skull. Why should our skull have cavities? When we breathe, air enters 4 cavities called the sinuses. In these cavities, the air becomes warmer, somewhat filtered, and gains moisture. It's prepared this way before it enters the lungs. The problem arises when mucus builds up inside these sinuses and they get clogged. There should have been a system to drain them, but there isn't. The upper sinuses usually have fewer issues because gravity helps drain them. But gravity doesn't work on the lower sinuses, making them worse by holding onto mucus. This flaw causes infections, makes breathing through the nose difficult, and often results in severe headaches. The lower sinuses in humans are a major problem that we struggle with. But if you look at a dog, for instance, you'll see that its sinuses are very simple and easily drain. That's why dogs never have sinus issues, but that doesn't mean they don't have other evolutionary problems. Scientists have studied this issue in humans and discovered that because smelling hasn't been as important to humans throughout history, this problem in their sinuses hasn't been resolved. And because human faces have become flatter over time, these sinuses have gotten worse, especially the two lower ones. But for instance, in dogs or many other animals, smelling has been an essential tool. That's why evolution solved this problem for them. But dogs, for example, have another issue in their spine. As they age, their backs develop problems, causing pain and making it hard for them to walk. Sometimes they even become paralyzed. This is another evolutionary issue in dogs, seen in all canines. So, what other evolutionary problems do we have? Our throat, a problem that can easily kill a person through choking. The pathway for the food we eat can easily end up going into the airway by mistake. That's the same choking incidents we hear about. But humans aren't alone. Many other creatures have their airways and food pathways next to each other. However, birds and snakes don't have this issue. Their airway is only connected to their nose, allowing them to easily swallow an entire fish whole. Similarly, snakes can swallow an animal larger than themselves. If other animals tried to do this, they'd choke because their airway would be blocked. Humans are the worst of all. Even a small bite can choke them. That's why it's very important for everyone to learn. If you see someone experiencing this type of choking, act immediately to save them. Using the Heimlich maneuver, you should immediately get behind the person. Wrap your hands around their upper abdomen, just below the ribs, and press in a way that lifts the person off the ground. You need to repeat this several times until their lungs expel the piece of food and the person can breathe again. Make sure to learn the Heimlich maneuver. But what if someone experiences this while they're alone? What should they do? They should immediately find the nearest chair, place both hands on the chair, and press their upper abdomen firmly against it. Repeat firmly several times to clear your airway. You might not believe it, but the Heimlich maneuver, invented by Dr. Henry Heimlich, an American doctor, saves thousands of lives every year. There are many creatures that can experience this type of choking. One of them is the blue whale, which can have a fish enter its breathing pathway located on its head, get stuck, and prevent it from breathing when it surfaces. However, unlike humans, a blue whale has never died from this type of choking because it knows how to free itself. It exerts a strong pressure and expels the fish from its breathing pathway. But humans are helpless in this regard and need help. So, is that it? Does it mean humans no longer have any flaws? No. One of humanity's biggest flaws lies in some of its joints, especially the knees and ankles. Of course, many problems with these joints and others are genetic. But issues with knees and ankles are much more common and are problems that most people encounter. Scientists say that ever since humans became upright, when Homo habilis evolved into Homo erectus, the knees and ankles started to struggle because from that point onward, humans walked on just those two. In contrast, Homo habilis used to distribute half of its weight onto its hands. Around 1 million years have passed since then, and evolution still hasn't been able to solve the problem of our knees and ankles. The resolution of this issue is inevitable. At some point, ankles and knees will become stronger to prevent these problems. But it might take hundreds of thousands of years. This is why we shouldn't refer to evolution as perfection, because we're not yet complete. If you look at the statistics for joint surgeries worldwide, most are related to the knee. Knee problems in humans aren't something that begins only in old age. A 20-year-old could also have knee issues and require surgery. Now, if someone's knee becomes problematic, there are countless solutions. Surgery, stem cells, and many other methods can be used to fix it. But if you go back 500 or 1,000 years, someone with a knee problem could no longer work, and their leg would become unusable. Let's move on. In some civilizations, they did things to make it work, but not for all humans. For example, 10,000 years ago, a person with a problem in their leg was done for. They had to sit in a corner until a predator came and ate them. So, what's the next problem? The human body's ability to produce nutrients isn't complete. For instance, the human body can't produce vitamins. It has to get them from the food it eats. Though it can get vitamin D from sunlight, most animals can produce these vitamins themselves. For example, dogs don't need to eat anything to get vitamins. Their bodies produce all the vitamins they need. But we don't know why humans can't produce these things in their bodies. And if they don't get them through food, they suffer deficiencies and face numerous problems. You'd know that Europeans in the Middle Ages were very short. But when these same Europeans migrated to America, where they had access to abundant nutrients, their heights suddenly increased within a single generation. For example, a short father who didn't get proper vitamins had a child who received complete nutrition and grew tall almost instantly. They improved in every way: taller heights, better skin, better brain function, all because they got the right nutrients. Why shouldn't the body provide these nutrients itself like all animals? From this perspective, humans are incomplete. The next issue is wisdom teeth, which most people are familiar with and often have to remove. Otherwise, they harm the jaw and other teeth. But this isn't true for everyone. Everyone has wisdom teeth, but not everyone needs to remove them. Now, what are wisdom teeth for? Wisdom teeth are the last teeth humans develop. They grow in between the ages of 17 and 25. Scientists say these teeth appeared in humans to handle prolonged chewing, because early humans ate raw meat, tossing it into their mouths and chewing it until they could swallow. They didn't eat tender, delicious kebabs like we do now, which are easy to chew. Modern humans have softened those tough foods and no longer need to put something hard in their mouths to chew. That's why we don't need these teeth anymore. But evolution hasn't caught up yet. So these teeth still grow in our mouths, and in most cases, they cause damage, which is why many people have them removed. Another problem, specific to women, is that some women have smaller pelvises and cannot deliver babies naturally. They are forced to undergo C-sections. Another thing evolution hasn't solved yet, and still remains in the human body, is the appendix. What is the appendix anyway? It's a small, finger-like projection that branches from the beginning of the large intestine and connects to the end of the cecum. This projection helps the immune system send good bacteria to the intestine, a function the human body no longer needs in this era. Perhaps early humans needed this function in their bodies, but for modern humans, it's just a leftover part. Throughout history, many people died due to a ruptured appendix. But today, you can detect it before it bursts. Quickly undergo surgery and have it removed. And if it's removed, just like wisdom teeth, it doesn't cause any problems because you don't need it. Another issue is the weak human jaw. Throughout evolution, the human brain has grown larger and larger. But this growth has caused the jaw muscles to shrink smaller and smaller. That's why our jaws are weak. They don't have much strength, and we don't really need that strength anymore. However, these weak muscles lead to jaw inflammation and pain. Let's hope these flaws are resolved soon. But you should know that even the smallest evolutionary change takes tens of thousands of years. If only we could make videos and report back when that happens.